So, first thing we're going to talk about, I found out I was on 4chan posting some Dead Rabbit Radio stuff. It's a good place for me to find listeners. I know a lot of people don't like that website, but the Paranormal board actually has a really good community for the most part. I think I'm about to get banned from there, though, but for posting my stuff. While I was there, some guy was like, hey, does anyone know about the Catman? And posted this horrifying photo. Now, not horrifying by normal 4chan standards or old school 4chan standards. It's a lot better than it used to be. But it was a picture of a hobo. I'm the only person who still uses that word, but it's such a lovable word. It was a picture of a hobo covered in soot from head to toe, dressed all in black, sitting or laying down in the dark, giving a thumbs up, his black sooted hand, middle of the night, with a dead rat in his mouth. I'm like, what the hell is this? This must just be some sort of fake thing. Catman of Greenock. Greenrock. It's a place in Scotland. He's a real dude. Nobody really knows much about him, but this is what we know so far. So, dating back to the 70s, people in this little village, I'm assuming it's a village, because everything in Scotland's a village, but in this little, sleepy fishing village, I don't even know if it's a fishing village, but okay, so just imagine somewhere in Scotland, whatever you imagine Scotland is stereotypically like. I imagine it is a fishing village. So back in the 70s, people started reporting this very large creature with bright glowing eyes scurrying about in the darkness. And at first people were terrified. They're like, what the hell is that? Get your gun, mate. I don't know what they say over there. But anyway, and this creature would be found rummaging through trash cans. He would never stand up. He always scooted along his belly. And it's freaked a lot of people out. But what happened was people started to encounter him. It wasn't just a far off sighting. They started to encounter him one-on-one. And that's when they realized it was a person who never talks. They don't know anything about him. But the reports were if you walk around certain parts of Greenock at night, Greenock, whatever, we'll say Greenock. If you walk around certain parts of Greenock at night, there's a chance you're going to run into the Catman. And he's very harmless. He'll scare the crap out of you because he's a full-grown man scurrying on his belly. And for whatever reason, his eyes glow. That might be a little bit a part of the legend, but we'll get to that. And he eats rats and goes through the garbage cans and disappears into the underground sewer system. And so you had this weird thing where a lot of people just were like, it's a legend. This guy doesn't exist. This guy can't exist. That's impossible. And it's a lot like when we talked about Aki from England, where unless you saw him, you thought he was an urban legend. And that's how the Catman was. For the longest time, people would say, I saw the Catman. He was eating a rat. And people would be like, whatever, Tommy, you're drinking too much. But the legend would grow. And people went out looking for him. A couple times, social workers went out looking for him. Because they're like, if there really is a guy, scurrying around on his belly, eating rats, maybe we should help this guy. And they would, find him and say, do you need help? And he would kind of scurry away. And people would leave food. But again, people were like, this is you, I don't know, that was my Scottish impression. Matey, you don't know. There's no such thing as the Catman, is what the general population would say. And people would be like, no, I saw the Catman. I swear to God, I saw him. And just like any legend, same thing with Bigfoot. People are like, no, I totally saw Bigfoot. And everyone else is like, kick bricks. There's no such thing as Bigfoot. In 2007, photos appeared for the very first time. So this guy's been in operation for close to, 40 years at this point. Because he started in the 70s. Photos appeared of a hobo and all covered in all black, wearing all black clothing, eating a rat. So at this point, people were like, I told you, mate, the Catman was real. You owe me some lager. And then they got their lager. But so at this point, social workers, they were like, okay, we really need to do something like this. And people in the community would look for him and give him food. People were treating him really nice. And he was just kind of this local legend. So now you're thinking, oh, Jason, that's a sweet story, but you missed the biggest point. Who is this dude? And the fact is, we don't know. There's always legends surrounding him because he doesn't say anything. Some people thought that he was a Russian sailor who got trapped in Scotland, which seems like an odd... You think he would just be like, oh no, I'm trapped in Scotland, I better take a boat back. Like in the 1970s, I mean, you'd be like, okay, I'll get an airplane or a ferry back to the mainland. But some people think he was a Russian sailor who got lost in Scotland and for whatever reason decided to become a cat. Decided to become a cat man, as you do. Some people think this is more likely that he was a mental patient who got discharged and then was like, screw it, I'm just going to be a cat man. And I didn't really like being in the hospital. I got discharged. And social workers who came back to him who said, hey, do you want to come back to the hospital? He's like, just scurries away. And then the third option is that he was a normal bloke. And then he got beat up by some kids and they broke his legs. And that's why he can't move around. I think that one's also pretty ridiculous. Because, I mean, even if your legs get broke, you can still talk. And just because I've had broken legs before, I've never been like, you know what I want? I want a rat. I want to eat a rat. So most likely he has some sort of mental impairment. Now, there's 2 more wrinkles to this story. So he went missing after about 2008, 2009. There were no sightings of him. And then in 2015, more sightings appeared. So people in that interim feared that he'd finally passed away because he's been doing this for 30 years. I'm sure like dogs are chasing him and stuff. Like he's getting cat scratch fever. And then other people are saying, no, the Catman never existed. The photos that were posted, someone paid a hobo to cover himself in soot and put rats in his mouth. Now, that's possible. You would have to pay me a lot to put rats in my mouth. Like, cover me in soot, yeah, sure, I can do that for free. But to walk around with rats, because there's several photos of him in different locations with this rat in his mouth. The timeline matches up. Actually, because you would have an era where people didn't have cameras. People weren't walking around with cameras. They would just stumble across the Catman and be like, oh my God. And then he would just kind of look at him and, I don't know, hiss. They'd be like, hey, do you want a burger? And then as cell phones became more prevalent, and camera phones, actually, more specifically, became more prevalent in the late 2000s, then yeah, that would be when you would start seeing photos of this guy appear. So the Catman probably still exists. And still alive and still doing cat stuff. I have a couple questions about this, though. One, you know, I've talked about local legends before. Like, when I grew up, we had Joe Trombone in our area. And some guy sent me a clip of that. I'm going to have to find out who did that so I can credit him, and I'll post a bit of the clip on the podcast because it's hilarious. But we had Joe Trombone, the rapping schizophrenic, when I was a kid. And then you had Aki in England, who was trying to fill everyone's muscles. You have this guy. I'm always obsessed by these little local legend type figures because every town has one. Every town has these local legends, and I think it's even more interesting when they turn out to be true. These figures that you don't know exist unless you're in a particular area at a particular time. It's very magical. It's a very magical part of a community where you have like the one just lunatic, not like I'm axing people to death lunatic, but just like a harmless lunatic guy like Catman. I guess Aki wasn't very harmless, but Catman. I love local legends. I love hearing about stuff like this. It's always fascinating to me when I just kind of stumble across stories like this. A dude pretended to be a cat for 40 years. It's mind-boggling. Most people can't even show up to work every day. This guy did it consistently, ate rats and scurried along on his belly, and was a cat every single day for 40 years. That is dedication. That might also be the definition of insanity, but he definitely had a plan. He stuck to it. Catman, Dead Rabbit Radio, salutes you. Catman of Greenock, a Scottish hero. Let's go ahead and move on to our next story. That was a clip from our daily podcast, Dead Rabbit Radio. Dead Rabbit Radio is available anywhere that you listen to podcasts. It's daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime news. If you want to hear the full episode that this clip came from, check the link below. Please like and subscribe. And hit that little bell, too. That does some magical stuff. Thanks, guys.